The Long Track Moore tornado, which brought widespread destruction to Moore, Oklahoma, on May 20th, 2013, is a testimony to this. The people of these states remember this EF5 tornado with a long sigh that turned their lives upside down. Now, was the Moore tornado a hit on the head for the US? On the fine day of May 20th, 2013, residents of Moore, Oklahoma were finding their way back home after work. They never thought that a twister would change their lives forever from then. This EF5 was one of the most devastating in history. It followed a path stretching approximately 1.3 miles, mainly impacting Moore and other nearby communities. The tornado remained on the ground for 39 minutes, carving a path of destruction approximately 17 miles long and 1.3 miles wide at its peak. It didn't take much time to achieve dreadful intensity, with wind speeds estimated at 210 miles per hour, aka 340 kilometers per hour, that can literally crush anything in no time. It swirled as if the motive was to level the entire neighborhood, leaving behind only foundations in some areas as memories. It was rated at the highest level on the enhanced Fujita scale, taking people's lives and dreams too. It destroyed approximately 13,000 homes, which forced over 33,000 people to leave their safe space, with a loss of 24 lives, including 10 children. An entire neighborhood was damped to the ground with its foundation as a death stone. What broke the heart of the world were the images that came the next day, where there were stones instead of schools, and many young minds started to have great dreams. The tornado directly struck two schools in the locality Plaza, Towers Elementary School, where 7 children sadly died, and Briarwood Elementary School, which bore severe damage with no fatality. The tornado literally crushed $2 billion into pieces, making it one of the costliest tornadoes in US history. But was that the end for Moore's aspirations? The tornado might have shaken Moore's life out, but it only gave the people more power to restart their lives with a meaningful beginning. It was a lesson for the world to address the impact of tornadoes. The city prioritized rebuilding homes with stricter building codes that included wind-resistant roofs, reinforced walls, etc. This could withstand the great force of wind and help the building stay strong when the tornado tested its strength. Plaza Towers Elementary and Briarwood Elementary were rebuilt with storm shelters and safer designs. Moore was showing how rebuilding efforts can pave the way for growth and preparedness. Now, it stands as a stronger, safer city, ready for anything and everything. But that was not the only time the fury of wind tested the world. Even after 13 years, the Joplin tornado remains a nightmare for the residents of Joplin, Missouri. The EF5 tornado, which had a wind speed of 200 plus miles per hour, swept the city like nothing else. It lasted approximately 38 minutes long and carved a path about 22.1 miles long and 1 mile wide, crashing everything in its path. Did it cost a little too much for Joplin? The destruction this tornado caused is still a pain for Joplin. 158 fatalities were recorded, whereas over 1,150 were injured, overwinding the medical facilities. Around 7,000 buildings, including houses and schools, were once happiness lighted, but no more. What made it worse was the damage caused to St. John's Regional Medical Center, where patients had to be displaced. The total damages were estimated at $2.8 billion, which was a tear to the US economy. The amount of trauma that the people suffered was much more, making them question their very existence. But what lessons did it teach us about urban preparedness? It was a call for the US to think about precaution rather than rehabilitation. Take note of the importance of early warning systems, including sirens, were placed. The weakness of buildings were addressed, and storm-resistant designs and community storm shelters were followed. Community-wide disaster plans found their importance after that, as unity is very important in times of natural disaster. Of course, the Joplin tornado showed nature's destructive power. It highlighted the importance of community resilience and preparedness, which can not only reduce the impact but also curtail the consequences. The Bridge Creek Moore tornado was not only a nightmare for the US, but also a horror for the entire world. It struck the US on May 3, 1999, and is considered one of the most infamous tornadoes in US history for the terror it caused. Its extreme intensity and catastrophic destruction are still lessons for the world to realize how bad a tornado can be. It was rated as an EF5 tornado, with a recorded wind speed of 301 miles per hour, aka 484 kilometers per hour, near Bridge Creek, which was most affected. The tornado traveled 38 miles in 85 minutes across central Oklahoma, including Bridge Creek Moore and its neighborhood, leaving its sign on everything. While the tornado caused 36 fatalities, around 583 people were seriously injured. The only reason why the death toll was managed was because of the effective warning systems. The happiness of 8,000 homes was shattered into pieces when the tornado caused $1 billion in damage, making it one of the costliest in the US. Even the survivors had their own stories to tell. They had to suffer significant trauma and long-term mental health challenges while watching their life falling apart in the form of a swirl. However, one of the meteorological significance of the Bridge Creek Moore tornado was its extreme wind speeds and prolonged intensity, which the world had never seen before. This called for them to brainstorm emergency response strategies. Even though the timely warnings from the National Weather Service saved hundreds from death, the emergency response experienced many flaws in Oklahoma. The residents couldn't do much in those 30 minutes, watching to save what they earned for the future except for their lives. That is where preparedness becomes more important than ever. Taking note of that, the recovery process majorly relied on building underground storm shelters and safe rooms. Public awareness and education campaigns also followed the path. The super outbreak of April 3rd to 4th, 1974, is counted as one of the deadliest and most widespread tornado events the world has ever seen. It took the life of the US and parts of Canada for over 18 hours, which was too much for the local communities to take up. A total of 148 tornadoes touched the ground of the US, challenging it for life. They covered approximately 900 square miles with winds exceeding 300 miles per hour. The radar technology limitations played a major part in the amount of destruction the tornado caused. Many residents were informed about the potential tornado, and the result was 319 fatalities, while more than 5,000 were injured. The entire area was flattened, leaving thousands homeless. The total damage caused by the super outbreak is estimated to be $4.5 billion, which is 0.33% of the US GDP in 1974. Schools and public infrastructure were shocked as if there was no coming back. The mental trauma that it gave the survivors was severe. The scars of losing their loved ones are still untouched. But it was not the time for grief, but for a strong comeback. The super outbreak was the first step towards the need for advanced meteorology. It highlighted the need for meteorological tools like Doppler radar technology for tornado detection, along with an efficient early warning protocol for the National Weather Service. Efficient radar technology can reduce the impact by several folds, as the tornado can be detected before minutes to hours. This can make the preparedness much more precise, resulting in a significant fall in the death toll. Recognizing the importance of preparedness, storm shelter, and building codes were established, along with tornado-safe infrastructure. With the coordinated efforts of federal, state, and local agencies, the US could add a new layer to its meteorological strides through research and modern emergency management. The Xenia tornado is the first name that Americans think of when they think about the super outbreak of 1974. It was part of a super outbreak and one of the most destructive tornadoes ever recorded in the US, striking Xenia, Ohio with intense force. It was rated F5 on the Fajita, and its wind speed exceeded 300 miles per hour. It demolished the whole path, which was around 32 miles long and half a mile wide. It hit Xenia at around 4:30 p.m., hitting the dreams of many. Due to the lack of inadequate warnings and ideal weather conditions, the tornado took the life out of Xenia. Around 30 people died, while more than 1,300 were injured, making it one of the deadliest. Approximately 1,400 buildings were destroyed, including homes, businesses, and public infrastructures like schools and churches. Thousands were displaced from their dream houses that they built with sweat and blood. The total damage incurred by Xenia was estimated at $250 million, along with the post-traumatic stress that the survivors suffered. However, the tragedy highlighted the need for a better storm warning system, which emphasized Doppler radar. The use of NOAA weather radios and broadcast alerts also needed to be enhanced. Community preparedness was also evident, as public awareness was important to help people understand the steps they should take during a crisis. Building codes and concrete shelters addressed the vulnerability of poor infrastructure. The efforts of Red Cross volunteers marked the cruciality of emergency response, along with the need for research and weather forecasting. The Daulatpur Saturia tornado struck Bangladesh so hard that a return was uncertain. Because of its catastrophic intensity and death toll, it is considered the deadliest tornado in history. The fajita rating was not effective at the time, so the tornado is said to be F3 to F5 with a wind speed of 300 kilometers per hour or 186 miles per hour, which makes it the most destructive one. It had a path of 10 miles and a width of 1, crushing everything in those villages and agricultural land. The pre-monsoon conditions, along with thunderstorms, were the perfect setting for the tornado to take birth. With the lack of a detection system and public alert mechanism, Bangladesh couldn't keep up for a minute. The death toll has risen to 1,300, with some reports suggesting even more. Thousands of people were injured and begging for help as medical facilities were crowded like nothing else. The entire village was flattened and no structure was left standing. It was the region's agricultural economy that suffered the most. Survivors took a long time to get out of the psychological challenges and anxiety of future storms. But that was the high time for the world to think about advanced warning systems. People started realizing that there was no future without it. Doppler radar technology took the front seat, while satellite systems for weather monitoring can complement it. The need for public awareness of tornado safety came for discussion by identifying and preparing safe shelters. Building communication networks, including radio, mobile alert, and community messaging systems. International collaborations also became important for the funding of infrastructure as disaster preparedness in countries like Bangladesh. The Daulatpur Saturia tornado was a monumental tragedy that exposed the vulnerability of developing countries and queues to build resilience. The Waco tornado is considered one of the deadliest tornadoes to strike the US. It swept the streets of Waco, Texas in 10 minutes. It was rated as F5 on the fajita scale with a speed of 206 miles per hour, a path that was 9 miles long and about a third miles wide, and it cut right through the heart of Waco. The tornado caused 114 fatalities and left over 600 injuries, making it the 11th deadliest tornado. Around 600 buildings, including homes and schools, were destroyed completely. The estimated cost of damages was around $41 million. However, such a loss did influence tornado safety measures from then on. The tornado demonstrated the dire need for a reliable tornado warning system. In response, the U.S. United Borough began implementing formal tornado warnings in 1953. The government also started making efforts to educate the public on recognizing tornadoes for self-safety. The wide collapse of downtown buildings brought the need for building codes and construction standards. These emphasized reinforced concrete, steel framing, etc. The Waco tornado was a tragic event, but it did reshape tornado safety measures in the US and how we prepare for the impact of tornadoes. The tri-state tornado, which occurred on March 18, 1925, remains the deadliest tornado in US history. The 3.5-hour-long tornado was enough to carve the hearts out of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. It is said to be an F5 tornado, with a wind speed exceeding 300 miles per hour. The tornado traveled around 219 miles across these 3 states, leveling anything and everything that was standing. At its peak, the tornado reached a width of 1 mile, which was enough to take the states down. The tornado was the result of a crash between strong low pressure and warm, moist air from the Gulf. Due to the lack of advanced forecasting, the states of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana had to beg for their lives and for their loved ones. The tornado claimed around 695 lives, while injuring around 2,000 people. Murfreesboro, Illinois, was hit the most, with the death ranging from 234 and destroying around 1,200 buildings. The damages ranged to over $1 billion, with farmlands getting devastated and infrastructures falling apart. The survivors faced immense grief and trauma, which took them years to receive. But it was time to look at tornadoes in different ways, with much more care and concern. That is when the world realized the degree of damage a tornado can cause in a region. They understood the importance of studying tornadoes, their formation, and their behavior. Research in that direction took place. Public alerts became the only way to manage tornadoes, and warning systems started to take control in the 1950s. Community preparedness and education were addressed through public campaigns and classes, along with the construction of safe shelters. Building standards were also revisited through building codes. The tri-state tornado was a defining moment in the history of natural disasters, unleashing deadly consequences that the world had never seen before. But it was also a lesson from nature on how it can take a toll on mankind. It became the keystone for the implementation of warning systems, followed by forecasting and community education. Tornado remains one of humanity's greatest enemies, but now mankind is stronger and sharper than ever to cut down the arrows sent by these furious swirls. Now, which tornado story impacted you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know if you'd like to see part 2 exploring more tornado events. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the events that have shaped our world, because every tornado has a story worth telling.